Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Jansen, and I'm the Development Coordinator for the Mountain Lion Foundation. Thank you for joining us either for the first time or once again for our educational webinar series. Today's webinar is with Tim Harrison. It is exploring the dark side of the Wildcat trade. Now, Tim Harrison, in addition to being a personal friend and colleague, is also a retired police officer, firefighter, and EMT. He is also now the founder of Outreach for Animals, the star of 2 award-winning documentaries, and the author of several books, including the most recent, White Magic. So we'd like to thank Tim Harrison today. Tim, thanks so much for joining us.
Come on there. Thank you for having me. It's good to see you again, too.
It's good to see you again, Tim. So you've done some incredible things. So I'm just going to dive right in because there's so much to cover, and our guests really want to hear all of this. So first and most importantly, I want to acknowledge a very important anniversary that passed this week. Can you talk about that day in Zanesville, Ohio, the tragedy that happened, and how that set you on your current course?
Yes, I was involved with rescuing, relocating, and being involved with the dangerous exotic pets, everything from cobras to big cats, and just seemed to be a lot of big cats in the state of Ohio during that period of time. We had no laws in the state of Ohio. We were called the Wild Wild West by the New York Times. One of the writers came out and wrote with me. We had the auctions, the biggest auctions in the country were out there in the Amish country, and the people were bringing their private zoos, and even AZA zoos were bringing their zoo babies. And when their expiration date came up, they couldn't use them anymore. They would auction them off. So I kind of give you the highlight of what was going on in the state before Zanesville. We were trying to get some laws passed. Governor Strickland actually had an executive order written out before that. It had to go for 90 days before it was going to be signed in. He ended up losing the election. So Governor Kasich came in. We had 4 people actually killed in our state by exotic pets. And it was in wild pets. And it was sad because it was 4 humans and numerous animals were killed because they were shot by police, or people were just killing them because they had no place else for them to go. So we were fighting to get this legislation passed in the state of Ohio, and it was all set to go. It was all ready to go. The executive order was solid. Governor Kasich came into office, and to make a long story short, as time went on, Governor Kasich started listening to his best friend, Jack Hanna from the Columbus Zoo. And Jack Hanna, as we find out now, especially in our new documentary, The Conservation Game, is that he fought animately about to keep laws out of the state of Ohio because he needed private breeders. He even said it on one of the newscasts at Zanesville. We can't stop the private breeding of these animals because we need them for education. That's what he considered conservation and education, somebody breeding a tiger in their backyard. Well, Terry Thompson, it was an unusual situation. His property was only less than about 45 minutes to the east of the Columbus Zoo on Interstate 70. There's a Columbus Zoo, Terry Thompson's property, and then the Wilds, which is another part of the Columbus Zoo. So it was all within just driving distance, quick driving distance of everybody. Terry Thompson had in Zanesville, at that time, 56 of the most dangerous creatures on the planet: grizzly bears, black bears, baboons. He had wolves, he had cougars, 38 big cats, cougars, leopards, African lions, and tigers. And he had all these on his property. Now, he wasn't a zoo. He wasn't allegedly a person that was selling them, which we found out later he did. But at that time, he had no USDA was allowed on his property because he wasn't doing anything that the USDA can hold him responsible for. He was just a private guy with his private menagerie. 56. Now, some said he had over 120 there for a while. So there was quite a few. And we know now, as time went on, after we watched The Conservation Game, now we know the term dumping and zoo surplus. They had to go somewhere. Well, it looks like to me, allegedly, as a law enforcement officer, now looking back at it, people were actually using these animals to an extent, whoever was using them, and they would dump them on his property. And that's how he had this large amount of animals. And this is also rumors from actually people that knew him. You know, people would just drop a tiger off or drop off something, and he would just have it on his farm. So this menagerie started getting bigger. Well, Terry Thompson got himself in trouble. He had a lot of problems already. He was a Vietnam vet, had post-traumatic syndrome. That's the sad part about the story, but he ended up selling guns illegally. Well, the federal government came in and they arrested him. And while he was in the courtroom, getting ready to be sentenced on the illegal gun charge. He's going to get 1 year in prison, not jail, prison, and on federal felony offenses. So he says to the writer for the Zanesville, her name is Kathy Thompson, not related, to the Zanesville newspaper there, and everybody could hear him. He said, if they put me in prison, when I get out, I'm going to turn all my effing animals loose and I'm going to blow my effing brains out. So he goes into prison after everybody hears this. I get it. I'm fighting animately. I'm fighting like crazy to get these animals off his property before he gets out in a year, because we know this guy's a man of his word, right? This is not, and like Jack and the rest of them said on TV, oh, this is a freak accident. It was not a freak accident. This was guaranteed to happen. This was a time bomb just ready to go off. As soon as he stepped out of that prison, as you know, it was just weeks that this incident happened. Now, as this incident went down, in the process of doing this, I had spoke at the Capitol, the state Capitol of Ohio, to Governor Kasich, to everybody in the building, and people can see the prophetic speech on. Somebody did a site of it and put it on YouTube. It's called The Prophetic Speech of the Capitol Building by Tim Harrison, and this is like 1 year before the Zanesville massacre. And I'm saying it's going to happen. I'm looking up at all the people, the state representative, everybody, and telling them this. And it's not like they didn't know it. And myself was there, and Wayne Pacelli at that time from the Humane Society of the United States, and Mike Weber, the elephant in the living room director that I was involved with. And I even mentioned both of them. We're here, we're telling you there's a problem. Now, you can't put your head in the sand. You'll hear me say that and say, you don't know. I don't know is what I said. We didn't know this was happening. You know it. So it wasn't like they weren't surprised about this. And there were problems on that farm before. He had animals escape before, but they were always able, the sheriff's department or myself or other people were able to round them up and get them back, because it wasn't illegal for them to have them. So it was one of those situations. Well, that cold October night, the 18th of October, 2011, I get a call from the director, Mike Weber. He says, Tim, something's going down. Something's going down in Zanesville. Now, we've already been in Zanesville a few months earlier than that, removing a bear from somebody's property just up on the hill. If you drive down Interstate 70, you'll see we call them stop and robs, like little gas stations on the road there. There's a cop and McDonald's, the two young ladies that run that place. We were just there 2 months ago getting drinks to go up and work with the bear. We had to do surgery on it, and then we move it to a sanctuary from that property just up the hill from where Interstate 70 was, same exit for the Zanesville massacre. So when Mike says there's animals loose, I heard the rumor is there's animals loose. Nothing really has been out on the news yet. So they said, okay, let me make a call. So I call over there and I said, hey, to the dispatcher, do you need any help? I have dart rifles and I have a dart pistol. And I said, I can come over and help if you need it. And she says, we need all the help we can get. Is exactly quote. So we jumped in the vehicle, drove over, and this is where it gets really, really bizarre. We're coming down Interstate 70, one of the busiest interstates in the world. And we're coming down it. There's not a living soul, not a living soul on the interstate. These big flashing lights. I've never seen it. I've been all over the world, Jessica, and I have never seen this in my life. A big flashing light. Stay in your vehicle. Dangerous animals loose. Call 911.
Now,
So
Tim, I do want to interrupt you. I want to clarify, these animals, if they were allowed to live in nature where they're supposed to be, and they were not kept as private pets, they wouldn't have any dangerous impact on us at all. They wouldn't be dangerous to us if they were allowed to be living where they're meant to be, and instead they're in these enclosures and these cages, and that's when they become dangerous.
Absolutely. And people don't realize too, in the wild, I've been charged by tigers in Nepal. They'll stop and jump and get out of your way. And just like sometimes with the grizzlies, unless there's a mama bear, you get a situation, you can stomp your feet and they'll run off. Now with these animals, you can stomp your feet all day. They know they're the most dangerous of the dangerous big cats, because they wouldn't be a danger to us in Ohio unless somebody had slept with them, wrestled with them, and they knew our limitations. They know a human's limitations. So they know they can chase you down. They're faster than you. They know they can knock you down. And usually that's what happens to them. Once they reach that certain age in captivity, they become sexually mature. They don't need you anymore. They will take that animal and put it in a corn crib. Some people may not know what a corn crib is. It's a round circular, like metal cage looking thing with a tin roof on top of it, and you put corn in it. It's 20 foot by 20 foot. And that's what that cat will live in for the rest of its life because they're scared of it now. And then the animal don't understand that either. Why am I being put in here? I've been sleeping with your son for the last 6-7 months. Now you got me in here because you're scared of me. And these animals are broken animals. And you know, Jessica, when we do bring them to locations, they'll continue walking in that 20 by 20 foot radius, even if they got 3 or 4 acres. It takes years sometimes to break that. So they're broken animals. And you're absolutely right. If you leave them in the wild, just leave nature the way it's supposed to be. That's, you know, like I always said, dogs and cats need homes. You got plenty of them out there. You know, leave the wild animals alone. Well, it ends up with this situation too. If Governor Kasich would have signed that executive order, we were going to remove the animals the very next day. If he had signed it May 1st, May 2nd, we were all set up. Outreach for Animals and 4 other organizations were set to come in and take every one of those animals off the property. There never would have been a Zanesville massacre.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that, and that's the truth. Well, we get there, make a long story short, get there, all hell's broke loose. Literally all hell. We pull into the gas station just to get some, we're not at that point exactly knowing what's going on, but all hell's breaking loose just up on the hill. We can hear the gunshots. So we go in and we're getting drinks and stuff because we know we're going to be there for a while. Because I've done, you know, escaped animals for 47 years. So I know it's going to be a not overnight thing. It's going to be there for a while. So we go get the stuff. The young ladies in the gas station see us come in and go, "Hey, how you doing, Tim? Are you here to help us with all the animals?" And I go, "What's going on?" And they told me, and my knees about buckled. They go, "Oh no, some high school guys just shot a black bear in the parking lot right out here. That's not even on the statistics." We went out and Mike took film of the blood and everything all over the parking lot where some high school kids shot themselves a black bear in the parking lot there. And that's not even on any of the records that even happened. So I go down, get to the dispatch. She tells us where to go. We go to incident command post. And some of you get on the Outreach for Animals site, you can actually see that. I've showed you where I was there arguing with Jack Hanna and some of the other people about where the animals should go. So the whole thing is I was in the incident command post. We're working on this, and there were still 6 animals that were able to be saved. And by me getting there too, helped that out. We stopped some of the, you know, what was going on. Now, those police officers did exactly what they had to do. There's no way we're going to be able to dart animals in the rain and the dark. It's not going to happen. And there was too many of them. You got to remember, it's 56 turned loose on the city. As I do teach disaster training, you know, through a FEMA and a Homeland Security grant course. And during that process, I actually speak about this as the largest terrorist event ever done by a human being using dangerous animals as this walking, thinking IEDs. And it's not the animal's fault. The animals are the innocent victim. So this was basically a terrorist event. He was paying back the city and the police department for what they did to him, just like he said he was going to do. Well, it turns out too, he poured blood all over himself, chicken blood all over himself, shot himself in the head. Terry Thompson did, the owner of the property, after he turned the animals loose, cut all the cages so he couldn't put them back in. And he laid there, and when the first officer pulled up, there was a large white tiger eating him, eating his genitalia, eating the soft tissue on his body. That's the first thing the police officer saw after all the calls came in. So they knew they had a serious problem. So they did exactly, I give Sheriff Lutz a lot of credit for, you know, because they've rescued, I've seen it. They've rescued animals in the past, a lion loose, you know, a bear loose. They didn't shoot it in the past. This was beyond anybody's ever been in any kind of disaster or situations game plan. They've never seen this done before. So we ended up having to start shooting some animals, and they were going into the city. They were out on the roads. They were out, as you remember, hearing the 911 calls. And when I first got there, he sent us out. I went to the incident command post. We went out to do the perimeter. There was actually people sitting in lawn chairs with rifles. I don't even know where they came from, with rifles, like big game hunters, sitting there waiting for some animal to come outside the perimeter so they can take a shot at it. Then there was 2 individuals. One of them was Tim Stark. He had 4 cages lined up behind his truck, and he was waiting to catch something. And we all know who Tim Stark is. He was looking to catch something. If he gets out of there, he's going to catch something, take him back to Indiana.
Now, Tim, when you talk about, you know, the police officers doing what they had to do to contain the situation, because there are certain scientific aspects you have to think about when you're darting an animal. It's not cut and dry. As you and I know, you can't just dart an animal with the adrenaline running out in, in a city and safely bring that animal down. But what I'd like to talk about a little bit is the traumatic effect it has on first responders. You and I have had this conversation, the PTSD and the years of therapy, because this was not something that these officers wanted to be doing. So when we talk about these days, compassion fatigue and trauma from seeing animals suffer, talk a little bit about the psychology of what you have to go through to heal from being an officer on the ground that day and doing something that you know that you don't want to do, but you know you don't have any other choice in doing.
Yes, that's a very big comment. Like you and I have spoke about that, and it's an emotional. I'm getting emotional myself right now because it's something I'll never forget. And the sights, the sounds, the smells, everything. There wasn't a dry eye for almost 48 hours. There wasn't a dry eye of anybody. And you may have a cop or one of them say, "Hey, yeah, I got to shoot a tiger," but I know later on, as time went down, that guy was in the bar. He was drinking, and we had some troubles. And the PTSD is something they're still trying to work. The therapists and the psychologists are still working on how to handle that. From veterans and myself working in law enforcement as a paramedic. Also, we see so much in firefighters. It's difficult to get your handle on that because each person's different. But when it comes to everybody going through something like that, it's almost like a unity. That we've all been through some horrible, unbelievable catastrophe. And none of the people that were involved there, I can even say Jack Hanna too. And I'm not a big fan, but Jack Hanna was emotionally distraught. It was just to see, it's hard to explain, just to see 38 of the most beautiful creatures, big cats. A lot of them were in bad condition, but they were still these beautiful animals laying on a hillside, just drug up and piled up on a hillside in Ohio, not India, not Africa, in Ohio. And for just to see that and to know the size of what happened. I didn't know it till I started seeing the bodies. I knew the guys, and a lot of the guys didn't know how many other people shot either, because the radios were just blaring. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my. It was just constant. And Mike Weber was there. We weren't allowed to film anything inside the perimeter. We filmed outside, and I don't know if you ever saw the movie E.T.
Mm-hmm.
And they're flying through there was real misty and dark, and the moon, and there's every once in a while the moon would pop out, and there's a little light, and they got the lights on the front of the vehicles, the military vehicles. They're going through the woods, and you'd hear a bang, bang, and you're like, and it just sent a chill. And I'm an ex-range officer. The gunfire and that night just seemed a little bit louder, seemed a little bit more intense. They're shooting innocent victims, but they had to, and they knew it too. They knew it too. This was not something that anybody was trained to or ready for. And as we say, as we know, Jessica, no law enforcement officers ever trained to handle a tiger or handle a cougar or handle any of these animals. They're not trained to handle that stuff. And with the darting too, you got to remember, if you do dart, you're using ketamine, and that's Special K. That's what they use at parties and make the lights brighter and everything else. It's one of those situations, you don't want a drug crazy animal running through your neighborhood either, and if you try to shoot them, you got to make sure you kill them, because you got an injured animal. It's going to be really mad running through your neighborhood. So I give them a lot of credit. Sad part, they might be 16 or 20 shots to kill one tiger because they don't have the proper weaponry. And that goes right back to the real bad guy in the story was Governor Kasich and his legislators.
Let me ask you this, Tim. When we share this information with people who they don't understand this background, a lot of them might not know about the exotic animal trade. And a lot of this, of course, is very jarring and upsetting to people, because it is tragic, and it is a lot of new information for some people. I think it would help if maybe we had an understanding of the statistics behind the wildlife trade. What does it cost to buy something? Where do you find these animals? How many states is it legal in? How many states is it illegal in? From a officer's perspective, can you share some of the facts and numbers on how the wildlife trade works?
Well, actually, I don't go by statistics a lot of times because what broke me of the statistics is when Brent Kendra was killed by the bear and by the wrestling bear and up in Cleveland, and that made international news, and it was on a couple TV shows. And but Brent was killed. The coroner got in contact with me and said, "You know, Tim, I don't know how you guys are keeping statistics, but there's no box to check that somebody was killed by a bear or a big cat. I had another guy who was killed by a big cat earlier the year before. And he said it got grabbed by the throat. He said, I have no box to check. I just have to write down what the injuries are and what the cause of death is. And the cause of death for Brent Kendra at the bottom was accident at work. How do you keep statistics on that?
Right.
And then when I started asking people, hey, you know, about organizations keeping statistics, and they said, well, the only statistic we get is if something goes on the news, right? That's the only time we find out. Well, guys started going deeper as outreach for animals into paramedics. Paramedics put it on their sheets. So anybody out there keeping statistics, listen to Uncle Tim, go to your paramedics and ask for the medic sheets. And they'll actually have python constricts child, or they'll actually say bear dismembers boy, right? They'll have it on the report. Where in the coroner's office, and even in the emergency room, as you saw the emergency room Dr. Roger Paholka in The Elephant in the Living Room, the first there's no place to check if you're attacked by your pet cougar, you know, but there's 3 inches of paperwork you have to go through if your house cat scratches you. The cat has to be quarantined and he has to have all his license and tags. Well, guess what? Just like the sheriff in The Elephant in the Living Room, where the 2 African lions were attacking cars on the interstate, he even says it. He goes, you have to have a license or tags for your dog, but you have to have nothing for a lion. You know, think about that for a second. These are walking, you know, I hate to say it, walking zoonotic disasters out there in our neighborhoods too. And that's how I get some of the laws passed to help these animals, is to say, listen, you have to have this for your cat, but you don't have to have one for your 500-pound cat, which is even more dangerous to the public.
So when we speak about the laws, before we talk a little bit about the conservation game, or your other films, let's talk a little bit about, you know, the overwhelmingness that we can feel as the public when we hear these stories, and about the laws that can be passed to help prevent this kind of ownership. And I know you and I are very big supporters of the Big Cat Public Safety Act. And the Big Cat Public Safety Act, for those who are listening, and I'll have you expound upon that a little bit more, Tim, is legislation to prevent the ownership of wildcats, anywhere from a mountain lion. Of course, we are all mountain lion lovers here at the Mountain Lion Foundation, all the way up to tigers and lions and whatnot. So that is legislation that's currently been trying to pass now for several years. Talk a little bit, when we talk about prevention of this kind of ownership, what the impact of that bill could have on the kind of work that you do.
Oh, it's like night and day. With the Big Cat Public Safety Act, it's the history of it is Tippi Hedren started the Big Cat Act in California, and Shambhala, and she called me out years ago, and I went out and she said, we're not getting any footing in this. I said, well, what I've been doing is going across the country, as you know, and put Public Safety Act, because it's always the cops are the first ones on the scene. And what happens? The animal gets killed. So I want to prevent this. And the cops don't want anything to do with it either. So we pulled them in. And that's what probably the wisest thing was ever happened, was the public safety part of it. Because most of these senators and congressmen and all congresswomen, they don't give a crap about the cats. They really don't. Most of them don't. They care about public safety and they care about their voters. So we put that on there, and that helped it out quite a bit. And that's what I push and put it. So what we'll do is when this goes out, and you know, we in 2020, the House passed it. I about died. And you'll see that in the conservation game. It's the first time anything's ever happened like this. And we're like ecstatic. We feel very confident that it's going to go through the House again, and then it's going to go to the Senate, hopefully by the end of 2022, this session. We couldn't get it through the last session because of the COVID situation and everything else. We had a lot of things going in the country at the time. I understand that. I'm sadly starting to understand what politicians do. There's no hurry to anything. It's really sad. But with that law, it'll stop the private ownership, no more breeding, no more pay to play. And that goes with AZA zoos and things of that nature, where you can come and get your picture taken with a snow leopard and endangered species. That won't happen anymore. You won't be able to go to an auction. The animals will not be auctioned off anywhere. It's one of those situations. The only people that are allowed to breed is going to be credited SSP, species survival plan, individuals under the AZA, and that they'll be able to be continually watched through the legal system. Right now we have nothing. And that's what Sheriff Lute says it beautifully. He says, he goes, hey, Tim, if we had the laws, we'd have been more than happy to move those things out of my county. There's not a cop out there or a sheriff that's going to tell you, I want 38 big cats in my county. No, nobody's going to say yes. So we have the legislation, we have the laws, we have the situation. It's going to stop this. Now, some of the stuff will be grandfathered in, some of the older cats, and that as long as they're taken care of and they have the proper stuff, just like we did in the state of Ohio after we went through the Zanesville thing. They ended up forcing them to do the right thing after that, as the citizens of the world came in and forced Ohio to do the right thing. And thank God we did. And we have a heck of a set of laws that I actually take around the country and say, hey, if you want something, here they are. It's already done. It's already done for you. So the Big Cat Public Safety Act will do that. There's only, I think there's like 7 states right now that have questionable or no law at all. Or no, some have permit systems. Permit systems mean nothing. You know that, Jessica, because if you have a mountain lion in your house, and all of a sudden the USDA people come around, you take the other mountain lions and you move them down to your friend's farm. They come in, they see one mountain lion and they leave. Show's over, right? And they bring the other mountain lions back. It's just that simple. Or as a woman who was breeding chimpanzees and California laughed in my face. She goes, Tim, come on now. She goes, I got a permit for 2 chimpanzees. Well, I've had 2 chimpanzees for the last 30 years and I've sold 1,000 because she's breeding them. And they come in, they see 2 chimpanzees. That's fine. They're out of there. That's all they do. We need the law, it's a federal law, for us to step in, stop this. I can go on your property and take that animal. This is illegal, especially in endangered species. Come on. Just like in the conservation game. Here they are with a snow leopard on their laps on a TV show, Jimmy Kimmel, and they're passing a snow leopard around. The anti-poaching teams I've worked with over there in India and Asia over there will tell you, if you picked up a snow leopard cub, you're going to prison, right? You can't touch them. They're endangered species. There's only 100 left in the wild. So what are they doing here? They're passing them around on a TV show. So to me, it's just common sense. You knew what happened with China, right? With the last CITES meeting when they said, we're not listening to you, America. You can yell all you want, but you got a bigger problem than we have with tigers. You got the Tiger King. You got more tigers in Texas than there is in the wild. You've got the tiger problem. So we're working on that. We get the Big Cat Public Safety Act passed. Guess what? We are cleaning up our act. It's up to you now, China, to do your job.
So let me ask you, Tim, since we kind of have touched on the conservation game a little bit, and I know right now it's not available to everyone to watch streaming just yet. We are hoping that the film is available, and we at the Mountain Lion Foundation will do our best to try and get that to our supporters so they can look at that film. Explain to us, the conservation game is about the deceit and the neglect and the trade behind what's called an ambassador animal. Could you try and explain to our guests what an ambassador animal is? Because most of them haven't been able to see the film yet and may not know what an ambassador animal is and where they end up after they are part of that program.
Now, we've all seen the ambassador animals. Everybody that's out here, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're, a professional football player to the guy that cleans up the streets. You've all seen these animals on TV. You'll see Jack Hanna, you see David Salmoni, you'll see all these big celebrities on Ellen's show or Jimmy Kimmel or David Letterman. And it will bring on, the most popular ones are the big cats. They're the cougars, the leopards, the snow leopards. All these animals are very popular. They bring them on. They're the highest ratings of their show in the entire year is they're bringing these ambassador animals on. Now, ambassador animal is supposed to represent the animals in the wild in captivity. They're supposed to help the conservation of the wild animals by showing these animals in demonstrations or in these situations that usually at zoos themselves, AZA zoos, will have you come up and see the animal and they'll explain it to you. Now they have pay to play, which steps up into the next category, where they'll actually pay money for you to come up and play with an endangered species, which just drove me crazy. This has gone on for years, like 30 years. So they ended up having to pay to play was the next step they went into. So people would pay, get their pictures taken with them, selfies, everything else, and then they go away. learning about the big cats and loving the big cats, and that's going to help the ones in the wild. Well, then they would also tell you lies about the ambassador animal at the zoos and at the people's private facilities, the roadside zoos. They would say these animals are helping the conservation. And you would ask them, why is that? Oh, we're going to keep breeding them because there's only so many left in the wild. We're going to keep breeding them here in my backyard, right? And we're going to use those animals someday to be put back into the wild. Now take it from a man that was at tiger projects in Nepal, India. They ain't going to take no tiger from somebody's backyard. They ain't going to take no tiger from any accredited zoo hardly. No animal's been reintroduced. No tiger's been reintroduced back into the wild from any place that's not been bred over there. It's not going to happen. That's crazy because first of all, you got animals you're playing with, as you see on TV, right, Jessica? They're playing with them, wrestling them and everything else. And these are our favorite conservationists, the ones that are supposed to be teaching us, right? They're wrestling with them. And we know better. Ask a Yellowstone National Park ranger. What happened years ago when they used to feed the bears? They quit doing that because people got killed because you're feeding the bears, right? They've lost fear of man. They'll walk right up and you're done feeding them. You don't have any more marshmallows left. The bear goes after you. So the whole thing is that we can't cross that line. You can't imprint an animal, a wild animal. Take it with just a basic raccoon. You take a raccoon and imprint it with it, you put it out in the wild, what happens? It's going to go right up to people. It's going to get self-killed. That's what's going to happen. You haven't done nothing except love that animal to death. That's what you've done. So yeah, well, that's what happens in the ambassador animals. That's the game. What they were playing was that game, and they were telling everybody, yeah, this is the way it's supposed to be, and this is the only way we can educate the public, and so many people have been educated by them. So what happens with us? I sat and started watching who the people were bringing these animals out to your favorite conservationists. They're all wearing Columbus Zoo shirts like they work for the Columbus Zoo or San Diego or whatever, right? And I'm looking at that guy. He don't work there. No, that's a guy that owns a pigsty over in Pennsylvania, which we'll show you in the film. And he has a whole menagerie in his backyard. He makes a fortune off of bringing these little animals out so the conservationists use it. You got to understand, one of the quotes in the film is really clear. The AZA does not allow this to happen. You can't take an endangered species off of zoo property and take them on TV shows. Now, where do they get their animals? That's what you see in a conservation game. They get them from private breeders, and these people are garbage, and they bring them out. I call them animal pimps. So I'm allowed to say that all I want to now because when we had the film done, I wasn't allowed to say animal pimp. They said, you got to be careful what you say. I don't have to be careful. I have my own nonprofit. If they don't like to be called an animal pimp, don't be one. Okay. So that's what they do. They breed these animals. When they're done with them, they take them to the auctions, get a little bit more money for them, sell them to every Tom, Dick, and Loretta out there that wants one, and they take them back home to their private homes. And you're going to see that. Or watch The Elephant in the Living Room. It's on Amazon. Watch this on everything.
Right. And I do want to let our guests know, conservation game is out. It was available in select cities. We will have that streaming soon. And again, the purpose of us at Mountain Lion Foundation and trying to educate people about this film, trying to educate about this subject is there are many wild animals that are taken to various different events, and they are bred for that purpose. That includes mountain lions, that includes all wildcats. And we at the Mountain Lion Foundation know that the best place for our mountain lions is out in the wild, where we are working to preserve and protect them. So we support this film and we support the Big Cat Public Safety Act because we do want to honor the American lion where it's supposed to be, which is on our landscape, and not in people's homes, and not as ambassador animals where they are not treated in the way that they should be treated. They are exploited and sold. So that's the purpose of us really advocating so strongly to support the conservation game, which is a award-winning film already. It's only been out a short time. I do want to take a moment. We have a photo that I want to go ahead and show. We're going to have Chelsea pull that up for us. And I want to go ahead and state before we do show this photo and we talk about this situation, that these are animals that were, this is an animal that was anesthetized and was professionally moved for rescue purposes. So if we could get that photo up, we'll talk a little bit about this mountain lion. And tell me, Tim, this particular cat, what was the reason for this rescue? What was this cat's situation?
As you can tell, this is a cell phone picture. I don't usually get photos taken of me carrying any animals. I'd rather not have that, but this is very, very solid story right here. That's Bobby Brink over here from Lions, Tigers, and Bears. She contacted us. There was a young lady there in Lancaster, Ohio again, another Ohio lady, and she had like 16 tigers, 6 mountain lions, 10 African lions, 7 wolves, and 1 black bear, all by herself. People just dumped everything on her, and she did not want to have it, and she was in the process of having Bobby and all of us get these animals out to different locations. Well, this mountain lion was one that we gave it a little bit of ketamine, a little bit of rompoon, a little something to take the edge off. And we carry it out. It's still able to move around, but it's not able to effectively injure any of us. So we're carrying it out of the house. Yeah, actually, we're coming out of the buildings. The building was actually had cages inside the house in the kitchen area. So when you walk in, you'll actually see the cage. Some of the cages were in the house itself. So the woman did the best she could. And I have nothing against people like her. She's just as much a victim as these animals are. This is so much, it's multiple victims involved with this, not just the animals, but the people too. Because it breaks her heart. She tried her best to try to help these animals that other people dumped on her. But that's what happened here. We got her out. These cats went to 5 different sanctuaries across the country. And Bobby Brink was instrumental in doing that from Lions, Tigers, and Bears out near San Diego, California. She came out and we were able to get the cats, checked by veterinarians. That's a lot of people don't understand. Some of them need surgical procedures. A lot of them haven't been taken care of very well. So there's a lot that has to be done before they can even go out across the country. This is a beautiful mountain lion right here, and it breaks your heart. The gentleman with me is Brian Hunt. He's in the military. He's a gentleman that does interrogations over in Afghanistan. He actually had a tear in his eye. He come out and he said he's seen hell over in Afghanistan. He said, Tim, he goes, these animals don't deserve this. This is maddening, and was not the woman's fault. It's the people's fault that see these animals on TV, see those ambassador animals, see the people playing with them on these Animal Planet shows, and they want to imitate what they see on TV. They want to be the Steve Irwins. They want to be the Jack Hannas, and they tell you that too. Mike Weber directed both the documentaries I'm in. He said, Tim, you blame the media way too much on the first documentary. I said, you ask them why they got the cougars. And he did, and they tell him, because I saw it on TV. Just like the show Jackass, everybody imitates it. 101 Dalmatians, everybody goes out and buys a Dalmatian when they see the movie. Same thing.
So I want to take a moment to let our guests know that while it is still legal to purchase and own these animals in some states, and we've even heard some people like Carol Baskin say it's easier to buy a tiger than it is a purebred dog at times. There also is a legal aspect to some of this purchasing and to the shows that you've been to, the exotic animal shows that auction off animals. And one of the stats that we do know is that the sale of exotic animals is third only under guns and drugs. So this is, I think, Tim, we can safely say we're looking at an epidemic. And so with this epidemic of trying to own and possess a wild animal, again, when we go back to why Mountain Lion Foundation supports legislation that protects cats, why we support films that expose ambassador animals and that trade for what it is, it really comes down to this is a bigger problem than we realize in this country. And it's something that we do have to aggressively act upon. And in talking about that, and in talking about the Big Cat Public Safety Act, this is a really great segue into your new book, which is called White Magic, which I devoured over, just 2 days. And something else that I think would be really important for our guests to know is that the white tiger is not a majestic animal meant to be in nature. This is not an animal that biologically should be in nature. And so can you talk a little bit about your new book and talk about why this myth of the white tiger exists and really what that myth entails? Because I think people don't quite know what the white tiger is.
Yeah, the book White Magic, the subtitle is called inside the book is The Curse of the White Tiger, because this animal's cursed, the people involved with it are cursed. Everything is cursed being around this animal, even though it's supposed to be this, in India, it's held as almost like a religious thing, ever see one of those. It's very rare, extremely rare to see a white tiger, period, especially in the wild. What happened was this book, I had to write this book, especially after taking my grandchildren to a local mall, and they had an orange tiger cub getting their picture taken. You got to remember, we're in the Midwest, and that's a big deal, and that's Crazy Joe Exotic's world. He'd travel around with his teams and make millions of dollars off, pay to play, get your picture taken, photo ops. So I'm watching this, and I asked the guy, I said, man, you got a big crowd here. And I'm just playing dumb, right? You got a big crowd here. I said, man, people love to get their picture taken with tiger cubs. He goes, wait to see white magic. I never heard that before. Out of 40 years of doing this, 47 years now, but 40 years at that time, I never heard that before. And he goes, white magic, watch. And he goes, and this is just a good old boy who has no knowledge about cats. They're just somebody they're hired to drag a cat out every once in a while, get his picture taken. There's no experts, nobody there, and nobody, they're conservationists with those cats at the mall. It's just two dudes out there passing the cats out to get their picture taken. So he comes and pulls this cat screaming out of this box, holds it up, and the crowd tripled to get their picture taken with the white tiger. I knew from that point on, if I get an opportunity, I'm going to do a book, a true book on the white tiger, the yin and yang, the pro and con of the white tiger. Because all we have is out, this is the only book of its kind. Only thing they have out there is the royal white tigers, the beautiful, amazing white tigers, and blah, 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 blah. It's all puff pieces. I said, somebody's got to tell the truth of how they got here, how it ended up again in my state, the Cincinnati Zoo, and ended up going from the Cincinnati Zoo to two magicians, Siegfried and Roy. They sold them from a zoo to two magicians. After you see the conservation game, I'll explain more to you too, but it sells them to them. They start breeding them like crazy, like rabbits. They only keep one or two out of that whole mess. Every year, just think in your minds, every year you get that news thing. Every news, look at these 6 beautiful white tiger cubs. Woo! And they're all playing and laying on the ground with them. All of a sudden, you only see one for the show. The rest of them kind of disappear. Well, they end up going to auctions. And back then, they were auctioned off sometimes up to $100,000, all the way to averaging about $20,000 for a white tiger cub. So people were selling these animals out to the general public. Now you can give them away. There's so many of them. There's so many, it's been interbred. They have all kinds of problems, cleft palates. Almost all of them are considered nearsighted. They have soft skin on their pugs, so they can't walk on concrete and they'll damage your pug. A lot of times their bone structure is not done properly. They have a different form of bone interbreeding because of that. And they also have a situation where a lot of times when they attack, like with Roy, a lot of people witness that, and friends that I know that work security out there, so they witnessed it. He said, Dad, I've been around tigers, man, out here in Las Vegas for years. And he said, they always wiggle their tail or do something before they jump somebody. Them white tigers don't do shit. I hate to say that, but that's what he said. And I said, that's because they're white tigers. They're nearsighted. They usually don't react until they get up close to whatever they're reacting to, and then they react. They don't have the mechanism in their structure to do a bunch of warning signs. They may hiss and may make some noises, but they react quickly. And that makes them extra dangerous to anybody who's playing with them as a toy. So to me, they're the most abused animal, the most misunderstood, the one that has been actually the most loved exotic animal in the history of mankind has been the white tiger. I've got my own site out called White Magic, Curse of the White Tiger, a Facebook site. I'm gonna start putting things. I just went around just 1 week in the Dayton, Ohio area, and there's T-shirts and puzzles. There's a rap group that's got a white tiger cub as one of their things, right? It's so many of them are using it as exploiting this animal for that purpose. And then you'll see it in the conservation game, a very sad story from a white tiger that was a rapper's, was chained to a tree. Nobody even knew it was there until federal officers went in on a federal raid for other things, and they found a poor white tiger cub chained to a tree. So
Tim, I just want to take a moment. We did have a comment come up, and I do want to address it.
Okay.
Someone had asked about white lions, and I do want to make sure that white lions are occurring naturally in nature.
Yes.
That is actually a natural occurrence. So I do want to address what I saw in the commentary, that a white lion isn't naturally occurring in nature, whereas the white tiger is about leucism, which is a gene that comes directly from the inbreeding of two tigers. So I want to go ahead and clarify that. And we're kind of starting to run a little short on time. So, and we've had so much traffic in this chat box that you can't see, Tim, but so many people getting excited to ask you questions. So I actually want to go ahead and turn it over to Chelsea, and we're going to go ahead and moderate some questions so people have an opportunity to ask all these questions. So let's go
Sounds
ahead.
good.
We have one question right now, or sorry, a couple questions. Linda, please ask your question.
Hi, thank you, Tim. I just bought your book. I appreciate all your hard work and agree with everything you're saying. My question is this. Some people get confused about the problems that you're talking about versus like here in Arizona, we have the Southwest Wildlife Rehab that, releases back in the wild. If they're not releasable, they keep them for educational purposes. Can you talk a bit about like the top 3 ways you can tell a legitimate sanctuary from what you're talking about?
Yeah, so legitimate sanctuary. One of the things too, I'll tell people to get on, especially big cats, get on the Big Cat Sanctuary Alliance site. They have the GFAST organization has set up rules that you have to be involved with that alliance, and it goes right down the rules. But I'll give you some heads up on it. Right off the bat, there's no breeding of the animals, no pay to play, no interactions where you're playing with the animals or yourself. People are getting in with them. The animals respected, the animals shown respect. There's not massive crowds of people coming up and looking and watching them at all times. They have set rules. Veterinarians, of course, top-notch veterinarians, healthcare, everything down the line. Sanctuaries are not there for the people. They're there for the animals. We like to call them some of the most impressive retirement communities on the planet. Especially ever been to Bobby Brink's place or go to Cheryl Tuller out at Wildcat Ridge Sanctuary. You go up with Tammy T's up in Minnesota at the Wildcat. I would want to retire there myself. That's how nice they are. That's a sanctuary. Now I know the place you're talking about. They do some good work, especially with the local animals. Really good work. But you got to be very careful. What there's a fine line you cross when you're playing with an animal or moving an animal or holding an animal, that for some reason people will see that, and you'll see on the conservation game why I evolved not doing that. Why I evolved for quit showing animals on TV or showing the animals I rescued, because nobody listened to me. All they saw was the animal. And thank you for buying the book.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We have one more question so far. Tamara, please ask your question.
Hi, Tim, this is Tamara, and I don't know if you can hear me, can you?
Yes, I can. I sure can. Good to hear from you.
Great. So you mentioned Terry Thompson was arrested for selling weapons. And what about the connection between exotic animals and drugs? I'm thinking Mario Tabrisi. And can you talk also about the connection between roadside zoos and pedophiles?
Yes. We worked on that together, especially with your attorneys group out there. And we definitely, there's a huge connection between all that. Mario was the #1 drug dealer in the United States of America. He was actually the person that they used for Al Pacino to imitate when he did the movie Scarface. And they're very proud of that. He's very proud of it. He actually was the individual that some of his people allegedly killed a federal agent and chainsawed him up into pieces and set him on fire. This guy sells mountain lions. This guy sells big cats. And he still does it. And he even said, as you know, Tamara, that he actually made more money by, smoothly, because he only gets his hand slapped every time he sold a mountain lion. He only get his hand slapped, and he has just a little bit of a fine. He made more money selling exotics, and he still is doing it. He has his own place down there, and he's still doing it, as we know. And even after all the federal offenses and everything he's done. And then, the groups that we went through, oh my gosh, it was like nonstop, the pedophiles. I could not believe it, Tamara, what we ran into. It's so much pedophilia, so many problems. We have people who have cult mentality, like we have Joe Exotic with young men, and you have Doc Antle. He liked young girls to come in and help, care for them. We have all kinds of situations here that just, as a police officer, there's red flags everywhere. Or as my FBI friends say, there's a clue. You're stumbling over the clues. So yes, Tamara, that's a very good comment. Anybody dealing with as an animal pimp is most likely connected with something else that's going on out there. It's not right and it's criminal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim, I do want to jump in just while people are putting some more questions in the chat. And I want to acknowledge something huge that happened with the conservation game, and something that I personally have a deep respect for the AZA, and that was the accreditation of the Columbus Zoo was stripped away. And so we do want to acknowledge that there are people in that industry who do want to do the right thing. There are zoos who are falling in line and saying, we will not have ambassador animals. We will not put animals on display. They're meant for education purposes within our zoo. And I'm just so proud of you all for putting out a film that allowed the AZA to say, we're stopping this now. No more accreditation for the Columbus Zoo. So at this time, that particular zoo is not accredited, as opposed to many zoos that will not put their animals on display like that, who will not sell their animals off like that. So we do want to acknowledge the AZA for doing the right thing. And also all of you at the conservation game for pushing for that, for pushing against, a time and time again, a practice that has injured animals, that has put animals in danger. So congrats to you all at the conservation game for that. And congrats to the AZA for standing up on behalf of animals. And we appreciate that. So I did
one
want to
thing too-
acknowledge that.
Yeah, one thing too is people have to realize we got to Akron Zoo, Cleveland Zoo, Toledo Zoo, excellent. Cincinnati Zoo, these are excellent zoos. They've worked with us. I've worked with them. Fantastic zoos all across the country. You got fantastic zoos. I don't want people to do that. And also the new team that's at Columbus Zoo right now, the restructuring, I support them because they're on the right track.
Fantastic. Let's see if we have any more questions, and then I'll pass it on to somebody else.
All right, there's another question right now. Leslie, please ask your question.
Thank you for everything that you're doing. First of all, I really, I just love what you're doing, and thank you. But what can you talk about the connection between human trafficking and the wildlife trade, wildlife trafficking?
It's so similar. In fact, to the point, I'm actually developing this, what we've just did with the animals, the amazing thing we just pulled off. And my team is what did it. Carney Ann Nasser, Michigan State University Law School, Jeff Kramer, man, the internet, nailing them, getting those tiger stripes. They're just like fingerprints, doing all that. Keith Gadd, National Park Ranger, federal investigator, and Russ Muntz, my own partner, who is an investigator in law enforcement. There was a perfect team to put together to do this. Now they're looking at us. Some of the human trafficking groups are saying, how'd you pull this off? How did you do this? And I'm telling them, we can do this with child trafficking because it's no different. It's absolutely no different. They're innocent victims. The animals are innocent victims. They're stacked up in the back of trucks. They're stacked up in vans, just like the kids are. And the whole situation is very, very much, I'm glad you asked that question. It's very connected. And the people involved, you're going to be very surprised how they draw some of the children in by using animals. They draw people to them by using animals. And we talked about it before on the show here that, there is people out there that are cult-like figures. Joe Exotic's a perfect example, young men. It's one of those situations where they'll draw those people to them by using animals as the enticing thing to bring people to them. So yes, there's quite a bit. And we are going to assist. And as I tell you before, it will work. We will help in that also that line too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're waiting for some more questions to come in. I'm going to pop in, Tim, because I haven't seen you in forever, and I love to get to pick your brain a little bit. It's fantastic. This all seems like a lot of really daunting information. If I had not worked with you, if I had not heard this information before, I would feel really overwhelmed right now. What are some simple things that our viewers can do to help with this crime? What can the average person at home do to help you stop the epidemic of owning and promoting exotic animals?
Well, right off the bat is not watch the shows and get your friends not to watch the shows. Anytime you see a person, I'll just throw it out straight to you. Anytime you see a person on a TV show saying they're, I like to call them a con, conservationist on TV telling you, I'm here to help out this crocodile, or I'm here to help this cougar out. Have you all seen those cougar shows, man versus nature crap? It's not man with nature. It's not, being part of the environment. It's being an obnoxious outsider is what they're doing. And they're going to tease that animal till it attacks them. Come on, that's not doing anything conservation wise, and that's not doing anything except feeding your ego and endangering the animal. Please do not watch those shows. Do not promote that. Second of all, please get in contact with your House of Representatives and your the senators and tell them you want the Big Cat Public Safety Act passed. That's how we do it. And I'm real big on, even if you filled out on, you see the, you get these lists of things that people jump on and they put a whole list under one organization. That's fine. But I know a lot of times they don't read those. I was told that by senators because it's a big list coming from a major organization. They go, yeah, we understand. Boom, right? If it comes from you also, personally, from Tim the fireman, and I'm pissed off. I don't want this happening. Blah, 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 blah. You don't tell me belong to any organization. You're just, so-and-so the hairdresser, so-and-so the cop, whatever it is. They read all those. They read the separate ones every time. So make sure you do that also. There's nothing wrong with doing the other things too, but I want you to do that too. That'll definitely get lost past. You'll feel comfort in that. Look what happened with the orcas. I don't like calling them killer whales. Killer whales is a good way to sell tickets. They're orcas. So when you sit there in a situation where, once people decided they weren't going to go for this, they're not going to go and, and see them put on tricks anymore. It was one of those situations where, man, it shuts it down. And we need to do that with the cats. It's I don't understand the cats. There's only a few. It was like 74 in captivity, orcas. We got thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of big cats. And come on, man, we don't need this. I don't want to sound like President Biden, but come on, man, we don't need this. We need to take care of this.
I think I also want to follow that up. There are so many wildcats that are exploited. And I want to remind people that if you are somewhere where they offer you a picture, for money, for a souvenir, or if there's an encounter that you could be offered, that's very much what Tim is talking about. That is the kind of exploitation that he's been spending 47 years to cut down. So again, as the Mountain Lion Foundation, what we always promote is keeping wild as much as we can and respecting it on the landscape where we can, doing what we can to conserve and protect them on the landscape. So I'm going to see if there's any more questions. I think we've got 2 more waiting, so I'm going to mute myself and let somebody else jump in.
All right, Janice, please ask your question.
Okay, here we go. I think I'm unmuted.
Yep.
Tim?
Yes.
I want to thank you so much for the work you're doing. I'm an Ohioan. I mean, it was sad to hear again all that fiasco mess that happened down in Zanesville. And then it was sad to see our Columbus Zoo lose its accreditation. But it sounds like to me that they're working to get back to being accredited. Is that correct?
Yes. And that's how it works. They got caught with their hand in a cookie jar, but it's not even a cookie jar. This is just plain evil what they were doing. When you see the conservation game, you're going to actually see where the snow leopards, majority of them that were used, died before they were 2 years old. Some died within weeks after being used by Jack Hanna on TV shows. So this is bad, worse than you can think. I wasn't ready for it when I started the investigation. That's how bad it is. But it's one of those situations. Yeah, the Columbus Zoo is on their way back. They got great people in charge right now. They got good people. But I always tell everybody, the people, when you sit out, they always ask me, how can you tell who the bad people are at some of these places? It's easy. I just said this at one of the film festivals. I said, it's real simple. Sit outside when everybody leaves the property. Everybody leaves. I got a little Buick Encore. It's a little bitty thing. People get embarrassed when they see me drive it. They think I'm just gonna have some massive truck. No, I have a little, not fuel working car. It ends up, the people drive out with those little cars. They're the ones doing the work. You're going to see people drive out brand new Lexuses and brand new Land Rovers. And as you found out, Jack Hanna just sold just one of his homes. He's got 4. One of them out in that ranch for $4 million. You got to remember, it's a nonprofit. The zoo is a nonprofit. How people say, wow, that's when you have a problem. That's when you know there's a problem. But now it's been cleaned up. They come in. It's in it. I would definitely. I tell people, don't stop supporting. The animals still need to be cared for.
Okay, my real question, I'm sorry if I'm going long on and on, but
No.
it all ties in with what you were saying about don't view, don't watch. What do you think about the Russian couple that rescued the puma they call him Messy? And from what I understand, he was truly in need of rescue, and he was not going to ever make it in the wild. Do you know about this Russian couple?
Sadly to tell you, no, I do not. And sometimes, if it's in a TV show,
No, they
Okay.
do videos, and you can subscribe. And I was watching them. I was addicted to it for a long time, but then life happened, and so I quit watching. But frankly, they do treat this puma very well. He's not being bred, and he does have land to roam. In fact, they rescued another big cat, a cheetah, but she didn't make it. So I don't know their names, but the name of the puma is Messy, Messi.
I'll
If you-
check it out. The only thing I would be a little bit more wary of, especially with my 47 years, and I think Jessica's much younger than me. She's a young lady, but she's been around enough. If they're wrestling around with it, putting their head against its head and kissy, kissy, facey, facey, and stuff like that, because people are going to imitate it. 100%. When you see the conservation game, I lost a friend imitating what I did. So I would advise you, and that's not the only one it's happened with other people too. I would not advise people wrestling around and playing with them, because it gives people the wrong idea, even if you're trying to do the right thing. So I kind of lean away from that. But no, if they're helping an animal out and it's not in some kind of exploitation way, I don't know if they're making money off of it or not. So if one of those situations, the animal comes first.
Okay, thank you. And thank you so much for all you've done and what you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, Cindy, ask your question.
Thank you so much for taking my question. And Tim, just thank you for all the great work and your service. My question's a bit related more to these so-called classroom educators that bring exotics of all different species. I'm out in California here, but they bring these animals to classrooms, to assemblies, and they're making thousands of dollars with every visit. Animals are transported very far distances. Just curious what your thoughts are. We've been successful local ordinances, but surrounding communities don't have them. So any thoughts on dealing with those smaller venues? Thank you.
Yes, it's a good question, because I was one of those guys. I would take the animals I rescued. Never bought anything in my life. I was just out rescuing things. There was no place for them to go. So I would keep the python, and I would go to educate people and things of that nature. And I ended up one time on a TV show, a national TV show, with a tiger cub that I rescued. It was a pretty good sized tiger cub. And I was on the show and I was trying to explain these do not make good pets. This poor guy was in a horrible situation. As I was saying this, the celebrities on the show were playing with the tiger cub. Not one person listened to me. And then when it was over with, I asked the kids that the cameraman brought their kids in, because every time I was on the show, they bring their kids. And I asked the kids, what did I say? Where did the tiger come from? What did they say? Oh, I don't know, but I want one. I want one. And you're going to see that in the conservation game. It's really sad. You can't do that. You cannot do that, because I always ask when I go to these big conferences, when I start off, I kind of upset some people. These guys are like you're talking about. It goes around, makes all that money doing those shows. I even say to myself, how's it been working for the conservation? How's it been working? It's done just the opposite. We had more animals killed, more animals on the endangered species list, more animals in people's backyards. It's just when the Tiger King, for a perfect example, it should have proved to everybody, don't buy them, don't do selfies. What's the thing? It became the biggest blowout. Look at TikTok, look at Instagram. I get tired of my son showing me stuff. It's nonstop now, people doing this, and it's gotten worse instead of better.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Leslie, you're up. Ask your question.
Sorry. How can I help without getting hurt? Mario lives across the main road from me. McCarthy's Wildlife Sanctuary is a few towns below me. And then, and I would be willing to go to the Capitol if you know of other people in my area that, to make a difference, to say something. And then there's also the fact that there's hurricanes here, and it's different if a lion gets out than a dog.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's that. And then
absolutely.
also, I used to volunteer at Bush Wildlife Sanctuary many years ago, not many, but in 2008. And I'll never forget, I was holding a skunk at a kid festival, and that's when it hit me, and I never did it again. Imagine how the skunk felt with all these hands coming at it if I felt disgusted. It's just, I know I'm asking a lot, but also Bush Wildlife is confusing because they do some good. Yet when I was there, they have a pool full of baby alligators.
Mhm.
So it's a mixture. And
Yeah.
anyway, that's my question. Thank you.
No, but Leslie, you're absolutely right. And the one thing too is you had the same wake up call I got. You used the skunk, I used a tiger cub. It's the same thing. It's just not registering to people. You're not getting across what the story is, and it just woke you up. But think about SeaWorld. They got some of the most amazing. I've actually worked with some of the most amazing rescue teams on the planet for sea lions and sea mammals. But then they're doing circus tricks at their facilities. So it's almost like it's a yin and yang kind of thing. It's ridiculous. But the really sad part of it is that hurts me because the exploiters are actually ones like Jack was over the AZA zoos. They were kind of like, oh, yeah, we're going to continue doing this because Jack is a celebrity and making a ton of money, right? For everybody. Well, that's what poor old Shamu was doing for them. Even though they're doing great, fantastic work. And I'm going to tell you the truth, most of those young rescuers never even been to a Shamu show. Didn't even know what one was. So that made me break my heart to understand, all of a sudden now they're going to shut down some of their rescue team stuff because they want to continue doing some of the things they were doing. It just makes it maddening. And that's the part where, take it from a law enforcement officer, I'm not putting these people in the same as the mafia or anything like that. If you ever notice, a mafia don in a neighborhood is the most loved person. And then outside that neighborhood, everybody's scared to death of him and he kills people. It's one of those things, he feeds the kids, he clothes the kids, and he's one of those situations. It's one of those things, it's a love-hate situation. And that's human beings. That's human beings. And when you can figure that out, please tell me, we'll make $1 million.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
We have a question that came in via chat from Emma. I'm assuming she's talking about the big cat law. When this law passes, what considerations have been made for the thousands of animals already in these conditions? They are not genetically viable. There is not room in zoos to house them. They cannot be rewilded. So what is going to happen to them?
Great question. That's why the Big Cat Sanctuary Alliance was developed. It's a fantastic organization. They've got, I think I'm gonna throw out, I'm not for sure, 25 or so sanctuaries. They've got room. They're not going to have room for everybody. There's going to be some of the elderly cats and some of the cats of people, have health issues or whatever. They're going to be grandfathered at time, but nobody can buy them from that point on anymore. Nobody's going to be able to sell them into auctions anymore. It's going to be like shutting it down. There's a point where you just have to stop. And it's going to be difficult, but we do have the celebrities. We do have the people out there with good hearts that want to finance these cats because they've realized that with all the work we've all done, Jessica and all of us in your organization, and Living with Lions and all this, if we get out there and teach people what's really going on, you're going to be surprised how many people will switch from giving that $4 million home to Jack Hanna and the other $2 million homes he has in Florida and Ohio, and take that money and help the cats we have here. I like to call them American tigers. These are American tigers because they're not going anywhere. They're mutts. They're mixed up Bengal and Siberian. They're mutts bred in somebody's backyard. And that's the same with the cougars and the mountain lions. They're never going to be able to be turned loose again. So they're ours now. We have to take care of them. like my old saying is, it's not their fault they're here, but it's our fault we don't do something about it. So we need to step up and be the good shepherds that China says we're not. You know, as we talked about earlier, we have more problems than they do. They're right. And we need to take care of it. I'm glad they showed that mirror to us. And now it's time for us to take care of it. And there's good people out there, trust me, really good people out there that are willing to step up right now.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from anybody? Oh, okay, yes. Linda, ask your question.
One last quick question. Tim, are the same people that are doing this kind of breeding and trading and so on also involved in the trophies and animal parts, like from endangered animals in Africa? Are they kind of the same group?
Yes, it's very much, I'm glad you brought that up. They're very, very much the same thing, except they're not in Africa. They're in the United States. You know, there's canned hunts in the United States. They tried to open one up here in the southeast part of our state. And believe it or not, I got groups from PETA and groups from the Bass Pro Shop to actually don't like each other, but they hate canned hunts. And they got together, good hunters and good people that love animals got together and stopped it from happening. So we can get together and do this. There is canned hunts. People pay thousands upon thousands of dollars to kill somebody's pet. Please be careful if anybody's watching this or listening that has a tiger. Please do not let these good-looking people come into your home, show you a video about the Huff and Puff, or I'm just gonna make up a name, Huff and Puff Sanctuary. We'll take your cat, but you can never see it again because we don't want the cat traumatized. That's what they say. They'll take that cat, take it back. Most of these cats have been declawed. Most of them are older and have cataracts. They'll put them out into a 1 acre facility area. A person will shoot it, kill it, and the taxidermist makes it look like it's a monster. New eyes, new claws, the whole mess. And it can be up to $20,000 to $30,000 for somebody to pay to kill a tiger or think about it, kill any of these exotic cats. Here in the United States, they don't have to go to Africa. They can do it right here in the United States. And you're absolutely right. The body parts, the animals are worth more dead than they are alive. And we have some of the biggest Chinatowns in the world, in North America, Vancouver, San Francisco, and New York. And I've already been undercover on those a few times already with some other organizations. And there's body parts in there. You didn't get them from overseas. I gotta say one more thing. In Arizona, just years ago, Tippy Hedren flew me in on it. They were selling lion meat tacos at a restaurant. So just think about that. That was in Arizona.
Any more questions, Chelsea, that we have for Tim?
So there's a written question. She's wondering, apparently eBay has been advertising guided hunts for thousands of dollars, and wondering how we can work to get them to stop that.
Well, there's a documentary that's, you have to bring tissue with you. It's called Blood Lions. And I know the people that did it. It's over in South Africa, and I stay in contact with them. That's exactly what you're talking about right there. It's usually Europeans, Japanese, or North Americans over here, Canadians, and people from the United States that'll actually go and pay tons of money to go over there and hunt these animals that they raise in captivity. It's sick. It's absolutely sick. And you're absolutely right. The only way to stop it is the South African government. They're really working on them right now. There's a group called Pit Track over there. There's some really great organizations over there that are working on getting legislation passed over there so they can't do it. And then we got to stop people over here from going over, like that dentist, what was he, up in Minnesota, whatever it was, went over and shot that lion with a bow and arrow over there. That's ridiculous. There's people from our part of the world and Europe that are coming down and spending all that money. As long as they're making money, they're going to continue doing it. That's how it works. If you can stop the money train, you'll stop the killing of these innocent animals. Cecil, the lion's name was Cecil. Yeah, that's unbelievable.
All right, that might have been our last question. Yeah, I mean, really engaging, Tim. I mean, everybody here certainly feels very emotionally about these issues. I know that I do. You and I have worked very closely together. I know that we at the Mountain Lion Foundation feel very strongly about these issues. So we thank you for being here, for shining a light or exposing really what's going on out there, for the service that you've given everybody for 47 years. Really is just very inspiring. So thank you so much for your time. Again, I suggest everyone, when they're able to, watch the conservation game. The Elephant in the Living Room is out now. You can find that on Amazon. You can find that through Amazon Prime. You can order the DVD. It's available many different ways. So I encourage people. I watched that as a young advocate years and years before I met Tim, and it changed my life. So I do recommend watching that documentary as well. And of course, Tim's new book out, White Magic. Please get a copy of that and inform yourself, inform your friends. The best thing that we can do is advocate for these animals by sharing the information. And of course, by calling your legislators and getting the Big Cat Public Safety Act passed as soon as possible. So Tim, thank you. Any final words for anyone?
Yeah, I'd like to say, everybody's putting all this stuff on me saying how wonderful I did. I want you to remember Mike Weber, amazing filmmaker. He puts the story together like nobody else can. Like I said, we won the Genesis Award with the original one, beat Oceans from Disney, and he's an amazing filmmaker. I won't work with anybody except him when it comes to full-length documentaries. I'll help with some of them. And then also Karen Agner, who is a National Geographic photographer. That's her picture on the cover of our book, Nora. That's one of the white tigers I rescued. And that came from Denise and Jose Flores' residence, where they took care of her. She was 135 pounds when she was rescued. We got her out to Cheryl Tuller and Mike Tuller out there at Wildcat Ridge Sanctuary out there. And she did a beautiful job out there. She just, a beautiful cat. So yeah, I just want to say there's a lot of good people out there. I just happen to be the pioneer at it, but I can sit back now and let you, Jessica, and all you youngins take over and kick some butt. I'll just help out where I can.
Well, thank you, Tim. It's always a pleasure to share space with you and listen to your stories. Thank you for giving us your time. And to everyone out there who's watching, please don't be discouraged when you hear this very overwhelming information. Organizations like MLF are working on this. Individuals like Tim are working on this. We're all doing our best to make a difference, and all of you make that possible with your contributions and your support. So thank you for being here today, Tim. Thank you once again. And thanks so much, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.